Yeah. Not really. That's still be weird. Keyboard. That's pretty different.
It's just you. I get contact. No, I drove it to see that guy. You're gonna hear. I'm just.
Oh, that does.
Like, it's very easy to respond. Like, hopefully, hopefully that's what I'm trying.
No, I don't.
It's gonna be a lot more than $27. That's because going back up.
Change my stuff. When you work with the low grade. Yeah. I'm not gonna break all the bounds and stuff.
Oh, really? That's right.
So you probably hear go before.
All right, guys, so two things really quick before I get started. One is, I was envisioning my dad getting moved to Mayo this week, but apparently he's not sick enough to do that. He has to get an appointment. So they're putting him into rehab. So I should be here through the end of this month. And then when I go to Mayo, it'll just be a couple of days when I do that. So there's that. And then the other thing is, have you guys heard that we could get some bad weather tomorrow?
Yeah.
And so I just want to tell you, if that is the case, I think what they would do is we would have to have something ready for you at 8:30 in the morning if we have a distance learning day. So what I would have you do, do you guys know how to check your messages on Schoology? Everybody know where that is? So I'd probably just post something in Schoology, but then what I would do is put it in, the weekly snapshot. But honestly, like, we're just starting a chapter today, so tomorrow, I would not do like a new lesson, only because this is the first time I've taught this section. I've done advanced algebra 2, I have not done regular, so I have no saved videos. So if we went to our course, the messages is up here, so I can send a message to everybody. And then if you go to the weekly snapshot, we're in week 2 right now. And so tomorrow's Tuesday, if I would have something here, and probably what I would do is just make up a quick worksheet and put it in there. If you do not have a printer, just use notebook paper. And then write it would probably just be like 5-1 day 2 worksheet or something, and you would just do the best you can on it. Okay, it would probably be something that would be just like today's worksheet. So just because we have to have something there for you guys. All right, so today we're starting a new chapter. And it's going to be on functions. And today what we're going to be doing is taking 2 separate functions and either adding them, subtracting them, multiplying them, or dividing. And the one that you have to be careful of is with division. We'll talk about this. When you're dividing, you're going to have to worry about what numbers does X not work for. So I'm going to just put domain here, and then we'll talk about this as we go through. When you add functions, subtract functions, multiply functions, if they said state the domain, what that means is state the X's that your function works for. When you add, subtract, or multiply, it's going to be all real numbers. So you don't even have to worry about the domain. When you divide, however, if you have something on the bottom, say that your function was 2 over x minus 4, you cannot divide by 0. So if they asked you what they would say is, indicate any or restrictions on the domain. So what you would have to do is figure out when would x minus 4 equal 0? And wouldn't it be when x equals 4? So when it says indicate any restrictions on your domain, what you would write is just your x cannot be 4. That's what they mean by that, okay? So we'll do that as we go through today. Now, when they use function form, okay, I think you've seen this before, but function form looks like this, and it's f of x is how you read that. Now, when they do functions, most of the time they do f of x, g of x, and then if they have a third one, h of x. Okay, that's just what they typically use when they do functions. So when you notice here, they're giving you one function that is x minus 1, that's f of x, and then g of x is this. And what they're going to have you do today is just add them together, subtract them, and then later we'll multiply and divide. So when this says f plus g of x, that's what this is saying. What you do then is you would break that down and you would take your f of x and just add it to the g of x. So all you're doing is adding those two together. So x minus 1 plus 5x minus 3. And then we add those together. So x plus 5x is 6x. Negative 1 minus 3 is negative 4. And that's all you have to do there. Okay. When it's adding, multiplying, or subtracting, you never worry about restricting the domain. Okay. Now we're going to subtract. And again, when they say that, what you're doing is you just kind of break it down. And so it would be your f of x function, and you're going to subtract the g of x function. Now, when you're subtracting, you have to be careful. So you're taking your x minus 1 function and you're subtracting this, okay? What you want to do when you subtract that second function is put it into parentheses. And the reason I say that is when you subtract a function, you have to change the sign on both of these. Some kids will do this. They'll think of it as -1 times each of these, and that will remind them to change the sign on both. You don't have to do it that way, but what will happen if you don't put it in parentheses is kids will remember to change the sign of the first thing, but not the second thing. So this would be -5x, and then this would be +3. Okay, now we have x minus 5x, and that would be a -4x, and then a -1 plus 3 is +2. And we subtracted, and with subtraction, the only time you have to restrict a domain is if you have something on the bottom, and we don't, so we're good. Okay. So this page is going to be a lot like this, where we're just adding and subtracting. So we have two different functions here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add these together. I have x plus 3 plus x squared minus 9. Okay. This is a rule in math, is you generally, when you have different powers of x, you want to put the biggest one first. Not necessarily something that would make it wrong if you didn't do it, but typically you'll see it where they put the x squared first, then the x, and then 3 minus 9 is -6. So that would be your answer. Okay. When you subtract, again, what you have to be careful of, the f of x is just gonna be x plus 3. But when I subtract this, okay, you have to change the sign on this as well as the 9. So when you rewrite this, it would be x plus 3. The x squared becomes negative. The negative 9 becomes positive. Okay, again, put your highest power x first, and it's negative. Your x is positive, and then 3 plus 9 is 12. So that's your answer. Everybody understand that? Okay, when you add, or when you multiply and divide, it's a little bit more work. So what we're gonna do here, when they're telling you to multiply, is you just take your f of x and you multiply it by your g of x. So again, what we would be doing here is we would be doing FOIL. So we would just go x plus 3 times x squared minus 9. Okay, so with FOIL, again, remember it's first. So you'd go x times x squared, which is x to the third. Outside is x times a negative 9. Okay, inside is 3 times x squared. And then L for last would be 3 times a negative 9, which is negative 27. Okay. If I look here, when I go to write my answer, notice I can't combine any of these because they're all different. And you can certainly leave it like this. If you checked your answer in the back of the book, they would probably put the x, oops, sorry, this should be x to the third. They would probably rewrite it so that the x squared would come next, then the x term, and then the number. But honestly, it's not wrong if you don't do that, okay? Again, always today you have to think about, can I restrict any number, or do I need to restrict any number in the domain? And it's multiplying, you don't have to, unless you had something in the bottom, which we won't, the way I made them up. Now, when you divide is when you do have to worry about this. So if we look up at here, we have to take f of x and divide it by g of x, okay, which would be x plus 3 divided by x squared minus 9. Okay, now when you go to do this, the ones that I did can be factored. Okay, so what you want to do is see, can I simplify this? So when I go to do this, I can't factor the top, but what do you guys recognize by this? The x squared minus 9 is what? Isn't it difference of squares? And with difference of squares, remember you need a minus sign, you need an even power, and 9 is a perfect square. And with difference of squares, one's plus, one's minus. And then you have x, and x goes here and here. And the square root of 9 goes here and here. Okay. Now what happens, notice we have an x plus 3 on the top as well as an x plus 3 on the bottom. So those cancel. And then what we have is when we go to simplify that, there's nothing left on top, so we assume that's a 1. And then on the bottom, we have x minus 3. So this is our answer. Now, when you go to restrict your domain, this is important too. With division, you're always going to have something in the bottom, and you do have to restrict your domain. When you're restricting your domain, you look at what you had prior to crossing things out, okay? So what could x not be here? Like if I had x plus 3, and I knew it cannot be 0, wouldn't it not be able to be -3? Do you guys get that? The opposite of +3? And then here, x cannot be, and if I set that not equal to 0 like this and solved it, it would be the opposite of this, which is 3. So here is my restrictions. X can't be a -3 because that would make this 0. X can't be a +3 because that would make this 0. And you can't divide by 0. Bless you. And remember, you check for that before you cross out the common term. Right? So now if we go to this page, we have where we're going to take our f of x and multiply it times our g of x again. So that would be x squared minus 25 multiplied by x squared plus 7x plus 10. Okay, when you have something like this that has 2 terms in the first and 3 terms in the second, you can't do FOIL anymore because this has too many terms. So what you want to do there is you want to distribute your x squared over all 3 of these terms. And what that means is I want to make sure I take x squared times each of these. X squared times x squared, do you guys know what that is? X squared times x squared would be x to the 4th, yes. Then x squared times 7x is going to be plus 7, and x squared times x is x to the 3rd. X squared times a positive 10 is just going to give me plus 10x. Then what I have to do is distribute this negative 25. So I have negative 25 times x squared, which is negative 25x squared. Then I have negative 25 times 7x, which is negative 175x. And negative 25 times 10 is negative 250. And now we're just going to go ahead and combine like terms.
Wait, why think of 10x? Why isn't it small?
Here.
Yeah.
It should be. Thank you. Yes, x squared times 10 should be squared. Thank you. All right. So now what we're going to do, we only have one x to the 4th, so that will stay. We also only have one x to the 3rd, so that's plus 7x to the 3rd. 10x squared minus 25x squared is minus 15x squared. Then we only have one thing that has an x, so we bring that down. And then we have a constant at the end, negative 250. Now, I have the main there. Your homework is, I could really just kind of take this out. Your homework won't make you do this every time. Your homework, the way it'll be is you only have to say what x can't be. And so with adding, subtracting, multiplying, you don't have to do anything. It's just with division that you will. Okay. So now what we're going to do is divide those two. So if we go back up here, we're going to take f of x divided by g of x. So it's x squared minus 25 over x squared plus 7x plus 10. Okay. Now what I would do there is I would factor. So what I'm going to do is see how I can simplify this. And when I do this, this is a subtraction. hopefully you notice this is difference of squares. It has a 2, it's a minus sign, and 25 is a perfect square. So if you ever need to use that cheat sheet with the perfect squares, you always could have that out, okay? So difference of squares, you're gonna have a plus and a minus. If that's x squared, we're gonna do x and x. And with 25, you would take the square root of that, and the square root of 25 is 5. Right? Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna factor this, and that's a trinomial. So if you need the box, I put it down here. This is x squared, this is 10. We want to find factors of 10 that add up to 7. You guys think what they would be? 2 factors of 10 that add up to 7. Be 5 times 2. So this is 5 plus 2 would be 7. So one of these is 5x, one's 2x. Remember, this is x times x. This is 5 times x, and this would be x times 2. So one of ours is x plus 5, and one is x plus 2. Okay? So one is x plus 5, and one is x plus 2. Now, you want to restrict your domain before you cross anything out. What can x not be here? It'd be the opposite of plus 5. So x cannot be -5, and x cannot be -2. So that's what they mean by restrict your domain. And then what you would do, these cross out. So our answer would just be x minus 5 over x plus 2. Okay. All right, now let's go to our last page. In this kind, you're going to have one part on your worksheet today that has this too. What they're doing is here we have 3 different functions, f of x, g of x, and h of x. And here they want us to add f of 3 and then add it to h of 3. So when they're saying do f plus h of 3, you can separate that out and just say that would be f of 3 plus h of 3. How you get those values is you would look at your f of x function, and they want you to look at the 3. So it's where that is. F of 3 would be 2. So this would just be 2. For h of 3, you'd go over to the h function, look on the line where the 3 is, and h of 3 would be 8. And then you just add those together, and it's 10. When you go to do the subtraction, you would be going g of -2 minus f of -2. So we'd go to our chart, we'd go to the g function. Here's g, here's -2, so our answer would be 5 minus, they want us to do the f function at -2, and that is 4. And 5 minus 4 is 1. That would be our answer. Okay. We look at the next one. It's h times f of 3. So it'd be h of 3 times f of 3. So here's h, here's 3. H of 3 is 8 times f of 3 is 2. And we just multiply those and get 16. Is that easy? You guys get that? Okay. Then if we go down here, we're doing division. So we have h of 4 divided by g of 4. H of 4 is going to be 7 over g of 4 is -1. 7 divided by -1 is just -7. And then this last one is going to be the g on top, so it's g of 4, which is -1, over f of 4, which is 0. Can you divide by 0 in math? Do you know what to put when you have to divide by 0, what your answer would be? It's undefined. So you would just do UND. So if you had 0 divided by something, it's 0. But if you have -1 divided by 0, that's when it's undefined. Okay. All right. So I will hand out your worksheet. I have not made a key for it yet, so I'll work on that as you guys are. And then I'll put it up on the. You think it was pretty easy today?
Stop.